Hi everyone, thanks so much for listening to another episode of Dogman Encounters Radio. I'm Vic Cundiff and I'll be your host for the show. Before we bring on tonight's guest, if you've had a Dogman encounter and would like to speak with me about it, whether in private or on the show, please go to dogmanencounters.com and submit a report. I'd love to hear from you. If you've had a Sasquatch sighting and would like to be a guest on Bigfoot Eyewitness Radio, please go to bigfooteyewitness.com and submit a report. All right, let's bring on tonight's guest. Tonight's guest is Jesse. Jesse, welcome to the show.
Hey, Vic, thanks for having me.
Oh, thanks for coming on. We appreciate it. Jesse, please give us a brief bio on yourself.
I'm just a regular 34-year-old small-town guy, really. Just trying to make a living for my family. I have a beautiful wife. We have 5 boys and 2 girls, and I try to relive my childhood as much as I can and play with them and, just enjoy the little things. I worked in the fields. I worked in the dairies. I've worked in the corrections department. I've worked at an ER, at a maximum security prison. I know how to keep, my adrenaline in a chaotic situation. I know what it's like to be in a very remote locations for camping for weeks on end. I did flowback in the oil field for the past 5 years, and we've got laid off, so I'm at a meat packing plant now, so yeah, that's just about it.
You just mentioned the time you spend in remote locations. Obviously, you're no stranger to the woods either, so please give us your woods credentials.
I enjoy hunting and fishing, and I could say I'm a little bit of a biology geek. I love studying animals and knowing everything and anything about animals. National Geographic as a child, I grew up watching it. I know about the hyenas in Africa to the maned wolves in Brazil and the Arctic wolves and giraffes and what have you, I like wildlife. I do hunt. I do fish. Being out in the field, sometimes you're looking out sometimes in the middle of the night for a little small sign to get to your location. So you're driving out in the boonies, out in the middle of nowhere, and then you're just away from everything and everybody. And so that's just about it.
What did having your encounters do to your love of animals? Did it have any effect on that?
Not at all. My love for animals is still there. I'm still in admiration of wildlife as much as I was back when I was 6 years old. No loss of love, I guess, for animals at all because of my encounter.
Oh, good. Yeah, if you would have lost it, that really would have been a shame. Besides when you had your experiences, what experience have you had in the woods that frightened you most?
I really can't say this really did scare me or raise the hairs from my neck, or a time or two you might feel like you're being watched, but other than that, there's nothing that made me feel like I was dinner or was on the wrong side of the plate per se.
Yeah, when you get that feeling, that's when it really gets real.
Right.
Yeah, that's not good. You found yourself 7 feet away from a dogman that was facing you head on. Do you get upset when you hear that people listening say they'd love to have an encounter of their own?
You can't brace yourself enough to actually have an encounter, and you can't. and you just can't. No, yeah, I get upset. You know, I don't think anyone could mentally and physically and psychologically prepare themselves to see what their eyes will show them.
Yeah, it's one thing to sit and listen to an eyewitness talk about their encounter or encounters and imagine what it would be like to have one yourself. But yeah, like you just said, you can never guess what it would be like. So to say that you'd like to have an encounter, yeah, that's just blowing smoke.
It really is. When I had my encounter, I had no clue of Dogman. I had no clue anything of this nature and magnitude would exist. And so when I come across this creature, I was just, and I still am just dumbfounded, just lost for words.
Oh, of course you're dumbfounded. I'm so sorry that the woods lost the innocence that they once had for you. I mean, here you've got a guy who just would love to head out into the woods and spend time and do things and enjoy himself, but because of the fact that you now know dogmen are out there, that's just totally changed now. And again, I'm so sorry to hear that you've had to go through that and experience that change. But having said that, Jesse, you've got tons of experiences to tell us about tonight, so let's get to it now. Please give us every last detail that comes to mind.
Okay. I guess it would be mid-November of 2014. And started with a cousin of mine that lived west of town. He'd give me a call, and he's like, "Hey, there's something taking the geese. There's something taking the chickens. There's something, out here. Well, what do you think?" And right off the go, I like, "Hey, let's just put traps. Maybe it's a possum or skunk or something. Little raccoon. It's a little menacing, trying to get eggs here and get a chicken and take off. Let's put a trap. Let's trap these little skunks, these little possums." And when I paid him a visit, it looked like the heads were being taken off, and there was no brains or anything inside the skull, just the skull and the body. The rest of the body was missing. So I couldn't think of what could do that. And then south of where my cousin lives, I have gamecocks, and a few of those birds went missing as well. And I took that very personal when that happened. So that began to raise awareness in me, and a concern. I had questions, and I wanted answers. I began to try to figure out what was going on. And at that time, I was working at a meat processing plant, a meat packing plant. I was working third shift. And now this shift was from 9 p.m. to 7 a.m. So I'd set my alarm at around 7, but then I would, get prepared to get everything gathered to take off to work. I began to learn and listen of these dogs in the distance. It was always at the same time, shortly after my alarm went off to go to work. And I always visualize these dogs, much like you visualize if you have chase dog or hog dogs or coon dogs. You go out to the woods and you let the dogs out, and you visualize where they're going from the barks in the distance. So you visualize them where they are. And so after a few days of that, it was always at sundown, and these dogs were always at the same spot. So I had picture in my head of where these dogs are at sundown. And then they would continue. There was a pack of dogs. It was 7, 8 dogs. It was a ruckus of dogs. And they would always disappear to the distance to the southeast side of town. Always. They took that direction and their barks disappeared. They didn't quit cold turkey. They just disappeared into the distance. And so that brought more curiosity to me. So one day I just thought, hey, I'm gonna, on these buy, sell, and trade pages on Facebook, I'm gonna ask, has anybody seen or heard anything out of the normal? Please don't comment on here, just send me a private message. And it wasn't before too long to where I started getting messages. And these messages came in, and the first one was of this woman, this lady. In the morning, she was leaving her back door en route to the chicken coop to collect eggs for breakfast. So she was, I guess, carelessly, just casually walking along, and she stumbled upon what she said was a black lion. And she said this black lion had wings because in one leap, it leapt over the chicken coop. That's what she seen. This other couple shot me a message, and they're at a location. It was an apartment complex south of where I visioned these dogs to be at when they began to bark at sundown. Now, what this couple messaged me was that they seen an upright walking canine chasing a pack of dogs around the car, like playing hide and seek or tag. But they noticed that, hey, this dog's, it's walking on its feet, its back feet. And so the third message was of a woman that was north of town, and she was coming back from the city, I guess gathering groceries or what have you, but she was driving a big F-250 pickup with a grill guard. And what she described as like, hey, I ran this monkey over. This monkey just ran across the county road, and I just hit it. So she, in a panic, she, pulled over, and she called her husband in a panic. Her husband was like, you know what, just relax, hang out for a little bit. I'll be there in a little while. Do not call the cops. Just hold on. But she was certain that if she would put it on reverse, those Fords, they have a camera on the tailgate so you could see what you're backing up into. And she was certain that she was going to find, a dead monkey. And when her husband got there, they weren't able to find anything but, just signs of hair on the grill and on the barbed wire fence off to the side. That's all they found. They didn't find anything else. And she was driving at a high rate of speed, 75. So it gave it a pretty good lick. Now, the other encounter was my cousin's house west of town. And then my friend of mine that lives south of him, where I have my game birds. And then it just clicked on me. Like, this animal, I thought, hey, this is a black panther. It's a panther. It has to be a predator, a big one. If it could jump that high and could travel that much in one night, it has to be a large cat, a panther, black panther. A black panther, they could when traveling at a long distance, they could keep now this is a radius of 45 to 50 miles that it was covering in one night. Now a cat could do that because I believe a cat could do that. They could maintain a speed of like 10 miles an hour when going a long distance. So, if the sun goes down at, 8 and it comes up at 7, it's enough time to travel at a rate, you'd have to maintain a rate of like 4.7 or 5 miles per hour, constant speed. So it's very possible. And I thought, this is a large cat. This is a large cat. So then, of all those messages, I pin dropped to where these people were sending me their message of their encounter, and surely enough, it was circling around town. Now around town, there's nothing but the Great Plains, the high plains. There's nothing but prairie and yucca and buffalo grass, and there's creeks here and there and ravines and lake bottoms, but there's really nothing. So I told my friend Sensei. I told him, hey, you know what? This is what's going on. What do you think? And for about 2 weeks, we studied it, and we were for certain, hey, it's hanging out at the park south of town. And so I braced myself and armed myself, and we both did, to harvest this panther, this large cat, to keep it from, eating calves and stuff, And so if you're going to hunt a panther, you're going to have one clear, good shot, and it's going to be a very well placed shot. And if you don't, it's either going to run away or it's going to run at you. So you're going to have something to follow up that shot with. So I had an AK-47 with a 75 magazine. I also had a Glock with the drum on it. I have faith in my projectiles and in my marksmanship that I could make the shot. And so we gathered up stuff and we got ready. We had binoculars, we had walkie-talkies, and we made a plan. Like, hey, we're gonna go to this park. There's a creek that runs from east to west, right through the middle of it, and right through the middle of town, and all the way to the state line, and all the way to, the other state line. And this creek bottom holds old mature trees, and the bank it could be up to 12 feet. Well, off to the side of that creek, on both sides, there's a road. Off to the south side of one of those roads is a wall that goes straight up. It's like maybe caliche or some kind of white rock that goes up maybe another 35, 40 feet. And in those are water runoffs. So there's little pools that hold water, and it runs off into the creek. So it holds moisture in those little pools. And I envisioned these dogs where, hey, this is where they bark. This is where they're at. This is where I think they start barking at this time. So I told Sensei, hey, you know what? Let's take off 45 minutes before. Let's beat the dogs. We'll take off. We'll get there. And what you're going to do is you're going to position yourself up on top of the runoff of the pool. And these little pools, there's high weeds. And this November, so it's very dry. But there's very tall weeds and thick bush and cover. And so I was going to position myself to where that runoff fed into the creek. And that's where I posted. Now, at this point, I'd tell Sensei over the radio, hey, go ahead and start making as much noise as possible. Roll little boulders in there, just chunk them in there, hoop and holler. And he had his wife and daughter there along, and they were up top to where it's just plain. I was set in the bottom to where the water runoff feeds into the creek, and I was in position to where if I needed to make a shot, it was safe. There was nothing in the line of fire, and I was able to squeeze off in a safe direction had it come that way. As soon as I give him the instruction to do so, he begins, and a few moments later, I begin to hear first the breaking of branches and twigs and heavy brush coming my direction, and that's when I learned that it wasn't a Black Panther. This was something it was large. It was extreme. It was something big. I've worked around cattle, and this was big. It was something of 800 pounds. I knew something was coming at me because of the way the branches and all the ruckus it was making as it was coming in my direction towards the creek bottom. And then as it got closer, I was able to make of it, and I started noticing that if you lay down like an entry door, any door, like a doorway, any door, and that if you laid it down, it was that long, but it was black. It was a very beautiful, provocative, beautiful, silky, like award-winning coat, shiny, silky, pretty, very well groomed. And at this point, it almost began to like slither, like quietly, just very, what's the word? Stealthy, very meticulously, like, hey, all right, I gotta like it was slithering like a snake, but it was long like a door, and it had fur. It was black, and so as it got closer, I was gonna notice that I had an opening, a clear shot. So I started looking for vitals, somewhere where I could direct my projectile to stop this. And it was at that time it was quartering at me from the left shoulder, and I had my front side of alignment was at the base of the neck on top of the shoulder, at his heart area. And in a few more steps, it was going to come to like maybe a 3 to 4 foot clearing that I was going to be able to squeeze off on this creature, on this animal. And so I moved my side alignment to the head, and when I did so, it came into the clearing, and we were like 4 to 5 barrel lengths away, and I was aligned in between his eyes. And the eyes were beautiful. They were gorgeous, pretty eyes, very emotional, very intelligent. And I felt like it was a man. It was a person. it felt like if I were to squeeze off on this creature that I was gonna commit the fifth. I was gonna commit the fifth, and we sat there and we just looked at each other. I don't know for how long, but I was looking at a dog, man. It was a man, but it was a dog. It was a person, but it was a dog. But its eyes were almost as if to tell me, "Man, you got me. You got me." And it 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 didn't snarl. It didn't snap. It didn't show any signs of aggression. And we just looked at each other. I don't know for how long, but it wasn't a Black Panther. I keep bringing up cattle. There's a lot of cattle in there. I worked in dairies and feed yards, and its eyeballs were the size of a golf ball. It was big. Its head was big, like a horse's head. It was a big, dominant animal. But its eyes were unlike any creature I had ever seen, whether in a zoo or National Geographic, at a petting zoo. This wasn't like anything I've ever expected to have hunted, and I couldn't shoot it. I didn't shoot it. I didn't feel threatened. I didn't feel I was lunch. I didn't feel, I guess I could be sympathy. Like it knew that its life balanced at the tip of my finger, like it knew. It knew what we were there to do, what it was there for. And it just stood there. I'm 5'8", 5'9", and we were at eye level. At this point, I don't know if it sat on his haunches, on his hocks, and just stood there. I didn't size it up. I didn't look at it up and down. I didn't, because I don't know if that would have been, I don't know if he would have looked at it as a threat, like, hey, he's sizing me up. I'm gonna get you. We just looked at each other in the eyes, but he was at eye level, and his eyeballs were. I don't know if it could have been a female. I didn't. We just looked at each other, and I was in complete just shock and admiration and just disbelief. I've hunted animals all my life. I've shot everything from with a little power line Daisy, and with the slingshot, with the 22, with the 308. I mean, I've hunted, I've harvested, I've eaten, and this was unlike anything I had ever, in my wildest dreams, had even thought about. And I just put my rifle down, and I walked to my right, and he walked to his right, and he walked to the creek bottom, and I didn't look back. I didn't feel the need. I didn't feel threatened. Almost as if I felt at ease, calm, content even to have seen anything like that. And I started working my way back up the little hill where Sensei was. And I guess they knew from my look that I was upset or just not the same. But I told them that it was something I couldn't identify and I didn't shoot it. And you have to always properly identify your target. And I couldn't. And I didn't. We got back to the pickup and unloaded everything and just drove off. I talk about it we would bring it up, and I'll always just try to put it in the back of my mind. It's always there. It was always there. But I just put it in the back burner and just didn't really say much. And then in 2018, Sensei sends me a link of Dogman Encounters radio on YouTube, and then I start listening. He's like, hey, you gotta check this out. And then I found out that, I seen a Dogman. What I had put in my path was a Dogman. What those people had messaged me that they had seen was a Dogman. I'd go hang out with my parents, and they have a farm south of town. Every time we would pass this park to that creek, I'd tell my dad, ahí yo miré el hombre lobo. This is where I seen that werewolf. And he'd just look over at me and just like, yeah. After a year or so, he told me, hey, I was driving through here and there was snow on the ground. And I had to go break ice from the troughs. It was already dark, and as I was driving through here, through this little covert where this creek runs through, to the left, había un hombre muy grande. There was a very large man that was standing with his back towards the pickup looking into the creek. Well, this is a little pickup, but it towered over the pickup, and then the covert slopes down, so it's still pretty big. And so he said that it really didn't dawn on him until he was going to have to drive back through there to get back home, that he, instead of taking the shortcut, he took the long way to avoid having to take that route. And my dad, he's not a fibber, he's not a storyteller, he's a very credible, honest man. My nephew, he's a tough guy, Marine tough. He's no pansy by any means. He was looking to graduate, a senior. He was working at sacking groceries, and he taking his girlfriend home one night, and he shows up very upset to home, He barricades himself in the room for three days, and just pale. It's a blanket, and he's mute. He can't talk. When my brother gets him to talk, he's like, hey, there was a dog the size of a dumpster that chased me. He was driving a little Honda car. He referenced it to a dumpster because he was rummaging through the dumpster when he shined the lights off, and I guess pissed it off, and it charged him. Where he got freaked out is when he said it just disappeared. I braced myself for impact because he was coming full speed at so fast at the car but it just disappeared. I was like, oh, he leaped over the car, he jumped over the car, and didn't see him again. Maybe 2-3 weeks ago, older gentleman from work, hey, that's the Dogman guy, referring to me. And this old man approaches me like, hey, I seen Dogman. Like, what do you mean you seen Dogman? How do you know? But like, what makes you? What happened? Well, he was driving from south of town to work in the morning, and he's like, there was this largest coyote I've ever seen cross the highway, but it was big, and it looked like a hyena because its front legs were bigger than his back legs. And it was just I've never seen anything like it. And that one I didn't label on the map screenshot that I took, and I put numbers on it. But that old man's encounter was south, in between number 3 and 4. And my nephews and my dad, I didn't label them numerically on that map either. But the more I study this, it was a Dogman I seen. Apparently they're still in their area. It's perfect. I think is just a good habitat for them. They have a highway, 2 highways, interstates. There's draws and creek bottoms where they could go and sing. They have caves. And they have an endless supply of beef. And I believe that's all.
Well, that's actually quite a bit. A few moments ago, you referenced the maps and images you sent me. I'm going to post them as you tell us about each one by one. Please tell us what we're looking at as I do that.
Okay, so there's a screenshot, and there's numbers, and these are numbered in the order that the messages came in. Mine was the one where I had from the water wash out into the creek at the park. East of that, number 2, is where the chicken lady, where Dogman jumped over the chicken coop in one leap. Number 3 is the apartment complex just south of that park to where I had my encounter. Number 4 is north, where the lady in the F-250 struck the monkey. 5 is where my cousin, where it all began, where my cousin calls and, hey, what do you think this could be? What could be doing this? 6 is where I have my Gamecocks, where it took some yellow leg hatch and Kelsos and pretty nice grays. 7, the old man from work, occurred in between 3 and 1. And there you have is where I heard the dogs. I would hear them at 1, then they would disappear to the southeast. I would hear the dogs every day at the same time. And it was in that pattern of where how those numbers are. It's a perimeter around town. If you see closely, there's squares. You zoom in, those are pens of cattle, feed yards or dairies. There could be up to 50,000 head of cattle at a feed yard at once, or even more. But there's river bottoms and draws that run straight through the middle of town and north and south of it. The Frio Draw, the Cerro Blanca Creek. And I believe those are perfect highways for them to move freely without being bothered or seen. There's circles of corn, standing corn. From what I've learned is they move around when the corn's tall as well. There's plenty of that. There's plenty of food. And that's it.
Yeah, from the way you describe it, they have everything that they would want. They've got concealment, habitat, food, water, you name it. What else could they ask for?
It's just, like you say, the right habitat, the right place. They got endless supply they have a buffet. And I guess that's why they would be so well kept, so well fed, so shiny, so silky, so smooth looking, because you'd think back, okay, you see these huge bears in Alaska when the salmon they're gonna spawn, and those big huge bears getting ready for hibernation, they don't grub on the whole salmon. They eat the little fatty stuff, the good stuff. And I believe this is why the cowboys and the doctors at these feed yards, that they find mutilated calves and cattle. They go for the rich in protein and vitamin B. They go for the good stuff. Just like the bear with the salmon. They just eat the good stuff, just what they need.
Yeah, with a feedlot like that around, they can take their pick, like you said, and wow, they can really choose what they go after, unfortunately. After having an experience like that with something that's not even supposed to exist, Jesse, how have you been able to live your life in anything that even resembles a normal way?
I still go on about my normal operations, my duties. I still hunt and I still fish, but I'm definitely more sharp, more keenly aware, more vigilant, if you will, of anything and everything that surrounds me. I mean, everything. Because they're out there. They're out there.
Oh, they definitely are. You just said that you still do things in the woods, but can you actually enjoy yourself when you're in them now?
I was about to say, you always have your hand on the trigger, I guess you could put it that way. I guess not.
Yeah, that's not enjoying yourself, definitely. When it gave you that Puss in Boots look as you were looking down your sights at it, do you think it might have been trying to play you, or do you think it was being genuine?
It never even dawned on me that it was trying to bluff me to see if, maybe I had a little scare in me or a little, I'll let you off easy. But, I was looking at him deep too.
Oh, I'm sure you were. Yeah, I can understand that. What kinds of problems have you had with nightmares or PTSD because of that experience?
I don't think I've had any nightmares or post-traumatic stress disorder. I don't believe I haven't had that. But if you could relate to, now this might sound strange, but if you could relate to throwing your wacky rig worm into the lake and just feeling the biggest, gnarliest jab or bite on that line and having it and reeling it in and losing it, and you stay awake for 2-3 days, and man, I could have gotten the biggest bass. This had to be this had to be a lunker. Or when you get buck fever when you're hunting and you see the nicest rack, the biggest, baddest of them all, and you have a chance and you ruin it like that. Like I don't, something like that. But it's just more like questions. Like it just left more questions. Like where did this come from? How did this get here? Are they breeding, or how have they kept under the radar for so long and so big? It's just shock and awe, and just 1,000 questions that can't be answered.
It is unfortunate that it left you with so many questions that you're never going to get answers for.
Right.
But having said that, it's about time for us to get out of here, Jesse. But before we do you have any closing comments you'd like to share?
Don't go looking for stuff, or don't bite more than what you could chew. There's nothing that'll psychologically and mentally prepare your eyes. It's definitely a life changer. That's for sure. And that's it, Vic.
Well, that sounds like good advice to me. Jesse, I want to thank you so much for coming on and sharing that experience with us. I really appreciate it.
I appreciate you, Vic, for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. You are welcome. Well, thanks again so much. Have a great night. If you've had a Dogman encounter of your own and would like to speak with me, whether in private or on the show, please go to dogmanencounters.com and submit a report. I'd love to hear from you.